want to talk to you about staging your tourniquets. A lot of times people get a brand new tourniquet and it comes in a package pre-staged. That's wonderful. A lot of times you buy a tourniquet or you buy a blowout kit and it has a tourniquet and it's all wrapped up in plastic. I know that you want to keep everything as sterile as possible, but whenever bullets are flying over your head and your best friend's bleeding to death, you don't have time to remove plastic from the tourniquet, okay? So go ahead and get your tourniquet set up, get your pressure dressing set up in such a way so that you can access them quickly. This tourniquet I actually carry in a pouch on my battle belt so that if I were to get hurt, I can access it quickly with either hand and apply it to myself. A quick note about tourniquets. Reassure them as best as possible. Let them know that this isn't an actual life-saving procedure that's going to benefit them, but for you to be doing this correctly means your patient's going to be in an extreme amount of pain. This is not a pleasant experience. Alright, so now that we've walked you through basically what a tourniquet is, what it's used for, how to put it on in its basic setup, we're actually going to take each of these individual tourniquets and we're going to put them on. Since we have two cat tourniquets, we're going to take one and we're going to put a cat tourniquet on an upper arm. We're going to take another cat tourniquet and place it on the upper leg. Then what we're going to do is we're going to demonstrate how the London Bridge tourniquet here works by self-application. We're actually going to allow Jacob to apply that one to himself so that you can see how that's done. And then we're going to finally show you how this NATO T tourniquet works. We'll put it on an arm so that you can see how to use it effectively if you have to put it on a smaller appendage. We're going to take this guy. It's all set up appropriately. We're going to set it around your leg. He's going to help me out doing this. Now this tourniquet is as simple as grabbing this tab and pulling down on it. See that? The harder I pull down on it, the better it works. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to windlass that guy up. And lock it down. Now it's important to use the design features of the tourniquet as they were meant to be used. Because if you don't, for example on this cat tourniquet, slightly different from this one, this whole tourniquet will fly off and was completely worthless. You'll lose your patient. So, go ahead and take this guy off. This tourniquet comes off very easily. Another point I'd like to make about tourniquets is that if you have medical gear, if you have these tourniquets, you need to be practicing how to use them. Not just on your buddies, not just on the guys at the range that you want to impress, but really and truthfully, you're your own savior on the battlefield. It comes down to certain echelons of care. It's always self-aid first. You are your first line of defense. Knowing how to use this gear appropriately guarantees that defense.
My favorite.
This is the other cat tourniquet that we were demonstrating, we were showing you earlier. And I want you to see, in particular, there is a two-way buckle here. If you don't use that two-way buckle, if you use that as a one-way buckle, under extreme stress, it will slip.
And it's actually, in the instructions, it tells you to see, if you're putting it on by yourself, that's an acceptable option.
The better option is to feed it through the two-way buckle, utilize the plastic locks that are on the buckle, feed it back through, and then regardless of the amount of force, whichever direction, that's not going to come apart, okay? And we've already discussed the disadvantages of this tourniquet is that if it gets a bunch of sand, it gets a bunch of blood and crap up in the Velcro, it has a hard time staying locked. So, use that distinct advantage. Put that tourniquet on correctly. If you don't know how to put it on correctly, it's time to take a class. So what we're going to do now, we're going to demonstrate to you. For self-aid, I'll have this staged in such a way that I can easily put it on myself, just like such. For regular aid, if this is a tourniquet that's in my bag that's meant for somebody else, because I keep my tourniquets for me in my pockets. If this tourniquet's in my bag, it's for somebody else, and it's staged as such. From this point, throw the tourniquet on. You want to check that you're approximately a palm's width above the antecubital space. Or if the wound is higher, you want to make sure that you're at least a palm's width above that wound so that you get actual purchase on that artery. And there again,
Good one there on that.
and there it is. Okay? Now, this tourniquet, again, very simple to put on yourself, very simple to utilize, so long as you don't get it dirty, you don't get a bunch of blood and stuff in it, you take care not to contaminate the actual tourniquet, this will hold just fine. If all you have are cat tourniquets, and you go to check the pulse, and you think, oh, the pulse is absent, we're good to go, I'm going to ask you to go one step further. Capillary refill indicates to us how much blood is flowing right here at the most distal edges of our appendages. No pulse, that's great, but I want you to stop and check cap refill. Is that starting to hurt you?
No.
So we'll go ahead and we'll take this off of Jacob.
Starting to clamp down.
And there we are. Okay. So that goes back into my bag. I pre-stage it accordingly if it's for somebody else. If it's for me, I pre-stage it set up so that I can just drape it over an arm or drape it over a leg real easily. Make sure that you make these large enough so that you can fit your boots through them. Now, the next example is this ratchet tourniquet here. And I'm going to hand that to Jacob. Go ahead and put that on yourself so that our folks at home can see how easily that is applied. You can wedge it there. There you go. With a major bleed, somebody can bleed out in as little as 2 minutes. So it's very important to have all this stuff appropriately set up so that you can prevent that major cause of death. Now, there again, his tourniquet's nice and applied. He's got good pressure. He's going to check his pulse. And also, he's going to check his capillary refill. Okay?
It's pretty slow.
It's very slow. If your capillary refill is less than 2 seconds, you're bleeding. Okay? Now, this is the problem with this tourniquet. If I want to transfer this over to a compression dressing, I put my pressure dressing into place first, and then I come back to this tourniquet, and I gotta fight with it to get it off.
Refrigerator.
Now, if this individual has a broken bone, are you feeling that broken bone?
Yes.
Yes. So, not only is this tourniquet fairly heavy, not only is this tourniquet fairly cumbersome and bulky, but it's also very difficult to manage on your ongoing assessment of a patient. Finally, we move to the NATO T. We have the NATO T stage just like this. As you can see, that this is a very small, very slim package profile. These fit really well into small tourniquet covers and cases that different brands are making. And I'll have a rubber band or a hair tie on this. Jacob really prefers hair ties, and the reason for that is because rubber bands, you expose them to sun, you expose them to weather, you expose them to sand and stress, you use them a couple times, inevitably they're going to break. So you either keep a bag of extra rubber bands in your kit, or you steal your wife's hair ties. Your wife's hair ties will not degrade over time. They're not affected by the sunshine. You can get 10 times the amount of use out of a hair tie as you can on than you can out of a single rubber band. You can feed those hair ties through your molly webbing, and you can actually keep tourniquets close to you in accessible spots with either hand, so that if one hand is injured, well, guess what? I can grab it with this hand and I can break it away, okay? Now, per the rubber band vis the hair tie, it does take a little bit more work to get it out of the hair tie, but I see this as all pure joy and advantage because that means I'm not going to lose my tourniquet running around out in the dark. So with that, we're going to go ahead and demonstrate to you how this tourniquet goes around the leg. For those of you watching at home with your timers on to see whether or not Jacob's going to bleed to death, you can see that this method is extremely fast. It's very versatile.
You're there.
Now, for this demonstration, Jacob still got his boots on. By this point in time, if he's got an actual wound, I'm going to have cut his boots off, I'm going to have cut his pants off, so that I can, 1, identify the source of the bleed, 2, I want to be able to check his distal pulse, and I want to be able to check his capillary refill on his feet. You can check all of those the exact same way that you would check them on your upper arm appendages, okay? And they tell you the exact same thing. So, let's go ahead and get that off of him. Give him feeling in his leg again. Now again, if this is a smaller individual and you need to wrap it around their leg, you can wrap it around twice if you need to. If you saw there, it's convenient that you can kind of throw it around your own arm. And I'm all hooked up. Okay. We hope that you've enjoyed this video. Furthermore, we hope that you've learned something, and that if you're ever faced with a situation that requires your use of a tourniquet, that you can draw these skills to bear. If you have more questions, we'd really like to encourage you to sign up for a class. Visit our website at www.xsallc.com.
You can also hit us up on Facebook.
And please, leave your questions in the comments section.